All right, in this lesson we're going to look at everybody's nightmare in drawing, and that's foreshortening. So we're going to try to solve this difficult riddle or this puzzle of looking at objects in their most flattened view, in their most extreme shortened view, even though the physics of the object doesn't change, okay? So we're going to look at it in three parts. We're going to look at it in part one, which is going to be more just very simple diagrams and to try to show you what's really going on with the viewpoints of the forms, how to draw them, and we're going to put them into these diagrammatic little structural components. So we're going to deal with the cylinder, and we're going to deal with the box or the brick form. And then in phase two, or section two, we're going to do a still life together. We'll do a still life setup, and I'll arrange the viewpoints where we're looking at objects in more extreme foreshortening, but we'll keep the objects very simple. Because what's true of simple objects in simple forms will be true of the figure, which will be more complex objects. Then of course we'll look at foreshortening in terms of the figure. We'll look at different studies done in art history, especially by Mantegna's Dead Christ, and then we'll end up doing our own studies from model references that we can break down and tame this beast, and the beast is foreshortening. So with enough practice, and I think shown in the proper way, I think any artist, whether they're designers, whether they're environmental designers, or they're graphic designers or product designers, anybody that uses drawing and painting, certainly fine artists, illustrators, hopefully you'll find this relevant and useful. Okay, so let's get to it. I'll be right back and we'll tame the beast. Okay, let's get down now to controlling this beast of foreshortening. So what I'm working with in terms of materials, I'm working with Sharpie for this drawing, this introduction, theoretical, kind of practical introduction, Sharpie, and then a Progresso black pencil here, just briefly, not a lot with that, and then a hard edge here too as well. The triangle to get started. So when looking at foreshortening, the first thing I want to talk about a little bit and show you is that we're going to be working with primarily two different forms for this particular talk, and I'll go ahead and draw them out a little bit. We're going to be working with, and I'm going to draw it in a side view first as we get started, and it's going to be the kind of this brick form here. Okay, so we'll bring down our front, sides, bottom view here. Okay, so we're going to be dealing with that form, and we're also going to be dealing with the tube or the cylinder or the can, and I think we'll use it at about this kind of length and width, so you'll have a good feel for it. So in its various views and aspects, we'll use these particular two forms, the box and the cylinder form of that. So and we'll magnify them to different degrees too as well. So you'll see them, but I'll try to keep to these proportions. I think these are two good figures, object figures to work from. So when dealing with foreshortening, we can understand better what foreshortening is when we understand what it isn't. So if we were to look at this box form from its most extreme kind of length side, I'm going to make it a little bit larger and longer. This box or brick form, I'll probably interchange that a little bit along the way. And we'll understand it to be from its side view, looking straight on, where we don't see the top or bottom, its true longest length. We'll see it like that. It's its full-on length. And so there's no foreshortening whatsoever at all, correct? And the same thing with the cylinder. We'll turn it down to the side, and I'll bring its length over, and bring a curve just to show you the difference a little bit. It could actually look straight in an extreme kind of length way, but we'll bring a curve over to show you that moving through, okay, like so. Maybe I'll put a little contouring line on it so you can start to get the idea that that turns underneath. Get the idea there. So what we can understand about these two drawings is that there is no foreshortening at all between the brick and the cylinder in our viewpoint. So if we go over now and go just the opposite way with our forms, if we look at them in a most extreme foreshortened kind of way, so here we have none, okay, none here, and we have full length here, and here we're going to have the extreme of foreshortening, meaning that in its most extreme sense it will be flat. Now this shows its true length, okay, but on this side we want to fatten it up so much so that it sounds like a turkey, but we want to give it its largest width that makes it even flatter, because we're not even dealing with form at the moment. It's so flat. So what we get then is this view now here, and it becomes very, very thick and very flat. And the same thing now happens with the cylinder, that it reduces down into what? Reduces down into a circular form. Here, same thing here, it reduces down into a rectangular form. And so we have now the extremes of foreshortening in through here. Foreshortening. And so that's the extremes. Everything in between falls in this area. We have, I'll just put FS for foreshortening just to shorten that up. And the closer we get to this flatness or this wide width, or what later on could be overlapping, we get an increased sense of foreshortening. And the farther we push back in through to its true length, we get less sense of foreshortening. So I think that's important to understand and realize when we're dealing with foreshortening. So a couple of terms I'm going to throw out there for you that happens in foreshortening. And again, we're going to look at this through objects, through the drawing of bricks in tubes or boxes in tubes, and then I'll show you a couple more different diagrams that you can draw. And then we'll look at it through, we'll do a still life together of these same objects where we observe that, and then we'll look at the figures. So it's a three-part series to help you understand. But terminology, vocabulary terminology, I think will help you too as well. And first thing I want to mention is when we have foreshortening, the lengths flatten out, okay, and they become wider. So we have flattening, we have widening, or I'll put wider in through here. So objects start to look again like a basic shape. Okay, they get thicker, they get wider, and they get flatter as well. And I think something else that's truly really important, again, as all these are, is next thing is that the distance between front, okay, to back is much shorter in foreshortening, okay, than in a full length on view. Even this object here, this box here, would be a little shorter than what we have here, okay. This degree here we don't see any because the extreme foreshortening, but in a moment I'll show you all kinds of different positions. And then also what's important, especially with the figure, but even simpler forms, in foreshortening, you get the idea of, and you'll need to get the idea of overlapping. Overlapping will be a big key, where one form overlaps in front of another form. I think that's pretty key for this lesson and for going forward, as you'll get that as well. And then also you'll get in foreshortening slimming kind of views, or I'll just write slim views, meaning that you'll get tapering away. I think that's important, so I'll put tapering here too as well. So you'll get slim views and you'll get tapering, where the back part of the form will be moving away and will be slighter. Even though it's overlapping, it will be certainly a little bit smaller. And then lastly, mostly what happens in foreshorten is 1 point forms, because they get closer to coming at you. You do have some in 2 point, but not as much. So just be mindful of that. And what makes this so difficult is that forms will tend to look like and act like they're coming at us or coming towards us, so that gets us closer to a 1 point form. All right, so let's take all these ideas over here and let's put them into some drawings through here. I think that'll help. All right, so I think what's bedeviling about a form, we'll take our box form first over here and we'll put it in foreshortening, is you take this 1 point front end of a form, okay? And so, but we want some depth and dimension to that. All right, so we'll pretend like we're looking up to it a little bit. So what's going to happen is we get this flatter view, right? So we check that off. Front to back will be shorter, so we'll check that off, and we'll check off overlapping here in a minute. And another thing I'll say is you want to be careful not to get too formulaic in that, well, you do one step, you do another step, and you get it. Well, it's through observation that you certainly help yourself master these topics. And so I can do this in many different directions, but I want to show you kind of these ideas over here to the left as they manifest themselves in the drawing here slightly to the right. And so what I mean now by a flatter view, we get this flattening across here, right? We understand that. But now we get the shortness of front to back. So we're drawing this object in more extreme foreshortening. We're kind of over here in our foreshortening scale. Overlapping the back of the box, which would look like the front, right, in perspective, will be here. So we have already a degree of where the front overlaps the back. We don't have that here because there's no foreshortening. So if we start to now connect these angles, right, or sides of our brick down through, and I'll even taper this even more, what we start to get then is a nice tapered brick in perspective, but more importantly, what happens, we get it into more foreshortening. So foreshortening happens, what we really will understand is more in this extreme kind of view, which really gets us more into 1 point, actually. So we get a slimming view. This brick is slimmed quite a bit down from here, and we also get the fact that, again, it's mostly 1 point. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we talk about and utilize ideas in foreshortening. So now we can do the same thing, and if you want to give it a little bit of tone here on the side, you can, just to show that dimensionality. But I think oftentimes what students will do is they want to make these, especially this bottom plane, open up and be wider. Let it be thinner. And we can even go more to extreme in a moment. And you'll get the idea again that you get those slim tapered views that almost disappear from your eye without seeing that. Okay, so let's do one now let's foreshorten one with a tube, and we'll start out with what will be slightly an oval as we draw. So I'll taper it just a little bit so it's not a complete true circle, so it's in a little bit of perspective. Okay, so we have that, and it almost looks like a circle or a sphere too, right? And notice I didn't draw a sphere, and the only reason I didn't is because using the sphere in foreshortening, since it's equal on all sides and it's round and it's universally round, it really doesn't help to show the concept of foreshortening by its length. And so these have length, where the sphere, in a general sense, in a drawing sense, doesn't. So it's not the greatest object to show for foreshortening. Now let's foreshorten this cylinder out this way. So I'll push our direction of the sphere, the cylinder, going back in the background this way. So already we'll get the back of the cylinder here, and notice that we start to get overlapping immediately. One of your most important ideas in drawing foreshortening is the sense that it's overlapping. So here's the very back of that cylinder. So now we can taper it, we can slim it up, and notice this is pretty fat and pretty wide for a front view. Okay, we can taper this, slim this up, connect the sides here, and we can connect the side here back to its slightly elliptical back, almost a circle. And we can connect this, and what do you notice? Now we have a can or a cylinder that is foreshortened in space, and it starts to show dimension and depth, but it's pushed back. This is going to come in handy later on when you draw still life objects and when you also draw the figure. What's true of these objects will be true of a leg, an arm, a toe, a series of toes and legs and arms together. And it will make, hopefully it will make grander sense. When you ever get in trouble drawing an object and it's difficult, go back to its most simplest basic form, and that will be the tube, the box, or the sphere. And they won't lie to you. They will always be your best friend. Alright, so we have a few beginning foreshortened ideas here. Let's continue to draw some further ones, so we'll see that in different viewpoints and aspects. And so what do you notice about here? Here we're looking up on the box, right? Here we're looking slightly down on the can in our viewpoint. I think that's important to realize what your viewpoint is, even if you're drawing out of your head, especially if you're drawing out of your head. You designers out there, product designers, architects, whomever you are, this material, this basic kind of material is at your disposal to be manipulated and made more complex when the time is right to make it more complex. So let's look at some different and the various angles too as well. All right, let's take a look at another cylinder or two or box or two in terms of foreshortening, so we can change the viewpoint a little bit, or the orientation of our box or our brick. So we'll stand it up a little bit. We'll sketch it out. And so I ask myself, what viewpoint or aspect do I want to communicate? Since I'm not drawing from any object, do I want to see it from bottom right here? Do I want to see it from bottom left, top, slightly left, slightly right? I want to see it from bottom and then slightly right this way, okay? So now I'll change a little bit, and so I know that I want to see an extreme viewpoint, so I'll start to thrust my angles. And yeah, there's a great degree of perspective going on, but I just want you to feel it intuitively for now, okay? And so I want to get the idea that this is a longer brick, so I might let this side go a little bit longer through here. and then tighten up this side in through here and come back over. And already we have emerged a foreshortened brick. So we get some overlapping of the back. If I draw the back in through here, it will look something like this, just slightly overlapped by there. So it's my understanding that any form that you draw that shows depth and dimension, that's not an extreme flat length view, has got some degree always of foreshortening. But what we really talk about when we mention and utilize foreshortening is what? The more extreme kinds of views where you get these difficult flat views. And again, go back to your vocabulary. I think it's in the tapering part of it, slim views and tapering, that students get into a little trouble because they want to show, again, a more lengthier or flatter, longer side, and they don't want to show that tapering. And so that can get them into a little bit of trouble. So I'll tighten this up a little bit if you're drawing along with me. Try to draw along if you can. And then tune me out and then start drawing your own stuff too as well. So we've got this to here. And so we get this nice tapered kind of brick form. Because we want to hang on to the integrity that it's a rectangular type of box, right? It's not a perfect cube. It could be, which is fine. But we want to get the idea that this form continues to take on the integrity of the form that one we want to draw. And I think the rectangular box is great for that viewpoint. And I'll give a little bit of expression to kind of the front and side with a little depth, a little dimension in through here. There we go. And so we can do the same thing over here. We'll do another tube, and the less flat that you open this up, these should be close to open ovals or almost circles. Matter of fact, they could be complete circles if we're looking straight on. Okay? So I'll make this just a slight oval. And we'll bring this the opposite. We'll bring it down in through here, and we'll get that overlap. Now I could bring this first if I wanted to. I could bring it to this angle, bring it down. So I could change that angle quite a bit. So I'm already thrusting. I've decided that it's going to be pulled back in this point of view, correct? So we have that, and we have that. So this is moving in this direction. And we see that, and so I can cut off the back of my cylinder. Now if I want to taper it even further, I can, to make it even more extreme. So it's really deep, going back in space. So I'll cut off here, and on the side, here's the oval through here. And it does get, you'll see that it gets a little overlap right in through here, right? If it were glass, that's what it would look like. Then we can bring our back, connect these two. You always want to make sure that that curve stays integral to your drawing here. So you could take your ruler and tighten this up, but you don't want to feel as the straight line comes into the cylinder that it stays a straight kind of angular line. You have to be very careful with that. That's a drawing. Definitely a big drawing tip there to know. So this can come over, curve, continue to curve right in through, and keep on going right in through there. So I think that's important. So what we get now is we'll come back and complete that, is we'll get that sense of, again, foreshortening coming across that form. So overlapping, did we hit everything? It's essentially mostly a one point. It's got a slamming or tapering view. It's got overlapping. The front to back is shorter than, here's the front, right? Let me make sure that's clear. The front to back, here's the very back, here's the very front. Look how short of a view we have, okay? So if I shade that underneath, we'll put some contouring, cross contouring underneath there a little bit. Okay, you see that? Look at the difference between this shortening and there. So if I redraw this form here without any foreshortening, and we keep the proportions that I want overall, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to look like a rectangle. And so if it's a tube here to here, right? So we have that. And if I close it where we don't see any of the opening of the ellipse on both sides, which we wouldn't in a completely flat view of the length in through here, that's what we're seeing. So there's no, again, there's no foreshortening of this tube at all. So I'll put a little tone on it so you'll see it. Right? So there's no foreshortening there at all. None. And so that's as long as length as you're going to get. That's its true length. So if that was, it could be 6 feet, it could be, 60 feet, it was a concrete pillar, or it could be 6 inches. This is the same here. So this distance from here to here, right, is the same as this distance to here, but it's only foreshortened. And so that is truly the power of foreshortening, is that slimming, tapering, widening view, right, a little flatter through here, overlapped kind of view, and again we show this depth and dimension, right, and again a foreshortened kind of way. I think that's hopefully getting clearer to you how important that is. So if we take a box worm now and we make it a little bit more complex over here, we can take this box and maybe we make it earth brick. We can make it slightly tilted over here, okay? And that's pretty flat. So again, it's more of those views where it's coming right at you or close to at you that is the trouble part. Going back over here to the top diagram, that's not so foreshortened. Why? Because it's a 2-point box or brick, and it's not necessarily coming at you, and so the length is close to its normative length, right? You get an underside, you get a right side. So this box we want to make feel coming close to us. So for this view, what I'll do is I'll show, let's see, we've done left, we've done a right, maybe I'll do something top here a little bit. And so I can say, okay, I don't want this brick to show this far, maybe I'll show it coming this far. So here would be the back view of our brick. Okay, I can do it that way, just to show that depth. Look at how little of the form of the brick, its length, which is this side that we're drawing. It's so squeezed. And I'm going to taper this out a little even more so, make it go further away, so it'd be about right here, the back of it, just to make it a little bit more extreme. And so this brick could be flying almost at us, slightly going away from us to the left. If it was truly coming at us, we wouldn't see the top, bottom, left, or right, correct? And so we would know it could be coming right at us if we freeze that in terms of animation. So I'll tighten this box up a little bit, this brick up a little bit. I'll interchange those best we can here and then here. Tighten that up. That's why the ruler's nice. So you can sketch quick and crisp and use your hard edge. And I like to use Sharpie for some of these because it doesn't smear. It goes a little faster. And it's clear on camera. It's really nice and clear. You can see that. And so again, this goes back into space, right, pretty quickly. So we're moving in this direction pretty quickly. And that gives you your side view of that box. And of course this view over here gives you, we can tone that back there if we want as well. It gives you that view going back into space. And of course this plane stays pretty flat to our eye, and the reason why is, again, we're getting more extreme foreshortening where it's coming at you. So let's do a few more extreme kind of things, and we'll do this with the tube. So we'll do the tube over here, right? And so let's make sure, again, we hit all our vocabulary forms. So we're drawing something coming at us, and it is flat, wide, it's got a lot of width to it. Check, we got that. Okay, so the front to back is going to be shorter. Now if it's coming right at us, it wouldn't have, if it's a tapered cylinder, we wouldn't see any one of these areas around it. But since we are showing some foreshortening, and again, that would be the most extreme, let's do something a little bit different here. Let's say it's coming at us, there's this tube coming at us, and it's going to go over our head a little bit instead of underneath us or hit us in the chest. So what we want to do then is show that it's going to come slightly over our head a little bit. And I'm going to put it slightly coming at us and over our head to the left. How would I do that? Well, that means that the angle that it's coming from would be to the bottom right. So what I'm going to do also is show you that this is slightly, I could actually slightly curve that up. If it was coming down towards us, like hitting our chest, I might show it slightly downward. And that's the reason why is it gets us to where our perspective is. Even though it would be relatively flat across there, I can push that a little bit. All right, so how much do we want to show? How close is it? Or how absolutely close to dead on is it? So the more I show the length, the less it's dead on, the less higher it is. I could show the length back here. Like this could be the tapered tube here. I could do that. Or I could bring it in closer, or I could bring it in really close. Like about right in through here. So let's show the overlap first. So here would be the overlap. And again, I'm trying to keep the ratio of what I have up here, correct? So we have that. And so now I'm going to taper this, or not taper it, but overlap it so we see it. And you can draw through there, see? I'm using a Sharpie and just lightening my touch. You can draw through that. You can darken this in later, right? So here's the very back of my tube. This could be like a, God forbid, a bullet, right? Ugh. But you get the idea. Something's coming at you. But it's slightly off, so it's moving slightly in this direction, but close to us. It's just going to miss us. So we have that. Then we can connect the sides. So I can bring my line here, right? In my foreshortening. And there's where it touches. We want to make sure that that's curving. Only that place where it touches it, it's not really even straight, just a point where it touches, and then you want to curve that. Curve that on through. Curve that on through like so. Here. And keep on curving it. And I'm going to put a shadow on this side underneath. So you'll see that little coarse shadow and through here. As you get that trucking. And let's darken in a little bit our top. So what you also get, the closer that something gets to you that's coming at you or close to at you, is you get, this gets larger, right, and gets more detailed. Okay, so we can say then maybe this is going to be a rocket. It's got a tipped point. Well, the tipped point would be about right here, slightly off center, because this is, if it was coming right at us, it would be right dead on center. So in through here. So what I could do, let's say this is some kind of rocket ship to the moon and it's taking off. And so we would show maybe the tip of that rocket slightly like so, correct? and everything, all its height and dimension could be coming at a point like so, if you will. Okay, and then we could get this kind of a roundness in through here. There we go. So what we have now, it's something that's coming really close to us, but is going to miss us and not hit us just off. If it was going to hit us, it would be straight on, and we would not see any side, any top or bottom, but we would see this flat plane across. Then you would have the apex of the point of the projectile or the rocket, and it would be super flat, something kind of like that, coming right in through and hitting us. And so I think that's important to see and realize, is that we want those super flat views, but foreshortening, the difficult part happens when we get off the extreme flat and we get slightly aside. So the difficult part happens definitely in through here, okay? So I think that's important to see and to realize. And when you start to deal with anatomy, arms, hands, toes, feet, all those difficult body parts, shoulders, you know, coming right at you, I think that gets pretty difficult. So what if we had, lastly, before we go on, what if we had two cylinders coming at us together and they were slightly attached? Well, let's work on that idea. But they were moving in slightly two different directions. Okay, so let's do that. So we have a cylinder here, correct? Meaning that we're going to draw the front plane of it, okay, in through here. And we're going to slightly, maybe we're looking above it, just slightly. No, let's go below, so we won't ruin that. My beautiful number 2 number, right? Okay. And so we'll move it slightly in this direction. And so we're dealing with the same ratio that we've done before with our tubes. So we're coming down this way, and we're coming down this way, and we want to show some foreshortening. Here's the end of our tube, pretty curved, over and through there. Of course, it would overlap, so we got our overlapping, our tapering view. We're good to go there. Well, okay, what if we want a connected one somehow over and across, and maybe show a little length coming, let's say maybe coming in this way. Maybe I'll do more than that. Well, we could bring another tube that might connect. Maybe it's going back in this way from here. So maybe it would come down here. It would come off here, off the other one, and connect up in through here. Okay, so let's darken it in. Let's take a look at what we've drawn. We have that there. We can connect our length here. Okay, and let's draw our circle around. So I vacillate between a pen view, holding view, and a palm view. You draw what's natural, what's best for you. So I like to slice these cylinders so you know what the end of it is. You know it's a cylinder a little bit. Kind of like a little pie slice in through there. So we have that. Then what we're saying, back in through here, this was another cylinder, right? Going in this direction and going down. And here's its ending point down in through here. Taper, taper, ending point through here. So I'll put a little shadow here, and I'll put a little shadow there. And now what we had was two cylinders going back together. And so you get now two taperings of the same cylinder. And you could continue that on even further as well. So we could do that maybe with a couple of boxes. So let's put a tilted box here. Okay. And let's move it slightly downward this way. Here. like so. And here's the end of that box in perspective, but also now very foreshortened. So we bring this end up. So we have that view foreshortening. But what if it's our back here? We want to move this box maybe down and slightly this way. So it's like two connecting boxes. All right, so well, we have a movement here. We can move that there and over. And we can bring this through, and we get a little foreshortening there too as well. Not as much, but a little bit. So it's kind of like an opening of two boxes coming in through. Here, let me tighten that up for you so you can see that. So you can start to, I won't say play this game, but actually better explore the idea of foreshortening with kind of multiple forms. And you'll find that it's a powerful tool to show depth and dimension in a more extreme way that comes close to coming at you in your viewpoint to your eye. I think several artists throughout the centuries have tried to develop certain techniques, certain light refraction, camera obscuras, Vermeer, Albrecht Dürer, to name probably a few. David Hockney talked about that. If you don't know who David Hockney is, he kind of reinvigorated this camera, this light gathering device. I use camera loosely, but it projected figures from the light that they were giving off in shadow into an aperture, and that aperture would reflect onto the surface of a piece of paper, and you could trace that off to help you with extremes of foreshortening, which I totally suggest that you research and that you look up. But I think that you're also rewarded by doing this kind of study over and over again and learning to draw that and correct that. The mistakes that you'll make when you're drawing foreshortening from the figure, because you'll want to lengthen it. That's just a natural order of things. You'll definitely want to try to lengthen it, but what you can learn is if you practice this enough, have people look at it, you can start to realize that, okay, maybe I need to shorten this up from the view that I'm getting. And what you see is you can approximate quite well that which needs to be done in order to show foreshortening. All right, so that's kind of the introduction to taming this beast, if you will, of foreshortening, making it your own, making your drawing and your draftsmanship stronger. So my suggestion is to take some time, really take some time, spend drawing out a lot of forms in your sketchbooks. If you have them, you're keeping them. In learning to control these forms. And the more that you do that, and practice foreshortening, and the more that you do that, you'll realize that you'll get, well, obviously you're going to grow and get better over time, in that you can start to see these forms emerge on other still life objects, and certainly onto the figurative model, which is probably where most of you, but not all of you, would want to wind up, working with, at least somewhat in part. Okay. All right. So what I want to do now is go on to the next drawing. We're going to take a diagrammatic view, and we're going to work with boxes, and I'm going to show you many multiple kinds of views with boxes that show foreshortening and where the extreme points are. Okay. All right. So I'll be right back, and we'll do some more drawings. See you then. Bye-bye.